welcome to the Roundtable Perspective. I'm your host, Tom Roach, and I'm joined today by my guest, Dr. Jesse Cohn. Dr. Cohn teaches English at Purdue University Northwest, and he published a book this year called Hot Equations: Science, Fantasy, and the Radical Imagination on a Troubled Planet. Let's talk about that title for a second here. You've got an allusion with hot equations there, don't you?
Yeah, so hot equations is referring, first of all, to the climate crisis.
Yeah.
But it's also a left-handed allusion to this famous science fiction story from 1954, the Cold Equations by Tom Godwin. It's considered by many to be this touchstone of hard science fiction, right? The kind of science fiction that doesn't allow magical escapes from destiny.
Right.
It's a story in which a stowaway on a small landing craft that's delivering medicine to a distant planet has to face this dilemma, right? Either she stays on board the craft and the ship crashes because it wasn't designed to hold her weight and the cargo, or and then of course everyone dies. She dies, the pilot dies, the colonists die, or she can throw herself overboard and sacrifice herself and save the others.
Right.
It's an interstellar trolley problem.
Right. The trolley references to the moral dilemma of throwing the switch and killing one person as opposed to leaving the train on the track that it's on and killing five, right?
Right, and as long as you're caught up in the pathos of it, you won't notice that it's a story full of plot holes, and if you start poking at them just for a minute, you realize that it's very silly to imagine that a civilization capable of going between stars couldn't figure out how to equip a landing craft with enough fuel to handle 150 more pounds, or that they couldn't throw overboard 150 pounds of something else.
Right.
And so forth.
And so the application here is that our environment, our world that we're in right now, is presenting us with paradoxical problems, or?
I think what that story does is it reveals a certain view of the world, right? And in this view, there's a sharp divide between the human and the non-human, right? Human beings are capable of speech and thought and deliberation. The inhuman world is ruled by cold equations, right? That heartlessly dictate what happens next, right? And
Laws.
Yes.
Rules of social activity and things like that, right?
Yes. And that kind of view of the world is often used to find excuses for why certain sacrifices have to be made, right? Why the poor have to stay poor, why this or that country has to be bombed, and so forth. The cover image actually is sort of a counterpoint to that. This is a photo supplied to me very nicely by the woman who drove this unicorn tricycle at Occupy Wall Street, where these policemen are standing around.
Yeah.
And the back of her bike said "Free unicorn rides for everyone."
Right.
Which not coincidentally is the slogan of the right wing, right? Whenever more socially responsible kind of legislation is offered, or anything approaching our ecological responsibilities in the face of the climate catastrophe, they say, well, that's ridiculous. That's like wanting free unicorn rides for everyone.
Right.
So it's an image that captures this kind of playful pushing back at that kind of false reality principle.
At the construct that needs to be reconsidered, right?
Yes.
So you look at a lot of contemporary science fiction and fantasy, and review that in here in a context of how it is, undermining, playing against the norms of contemporary society. Is that?
Yeah. Science fiction and fantasy can really push back against society in an interesting way. They reflect it and they refract it in a way that lets you see it differently.
So and the assumption is that most of us go through our daily lives without really considering why we're doing all these things and does it make sense. And so reading maybe an interesting story about an alien or a horror story even, right, gets us to rethink some of the things that we're doing that we take for granted. Can you give me some examples of stories that you looked at?
Well, two novels that I focus on pretty extensively are DC Shull's Everfair, which is this alternate history in which she imagines. You're familiar with the incredible history of colonialism in the Congo, right? With the Belgian king plundering the land for rubber, subjecting the natives to these really awful kinds of torture. Right. So she imagines that in the 1880s, this unlikely coalition develops of Black American abolitionists and the Fabian Society from the UK with its resources, and the natives to first of all to purchase part of the Belgian Congo back as a free territory, and then eventually to fight King Leopold out. And history takes this very different turn as a result.
And what do you take from that?
Well, I think it's another way of, again, pushing back against the idea that history moves in a linear fashion, right. That things could not have gone any differently. That this was a tragic but historically necessary.
It was necessary.
Right.
The white Europeans come in and modernize the African countries, apparently, right?
Yes. Yeah. And Shaw particularly really pushes back against some of the kinds of modernist assumptions behind that. Yeah. She herself is a practitioner of Ifa, a West African religion, and takes very seriously the beliefs of the indigenes in the story. Takes their view of things. So magic enters into it as well, ritual magic. And this kind of is part of what I'm seeing as a pattern. A lot of this recent science fiction and fantasy by especially African American women really tries to bend or blur the line between science fiction and fantasy. Science fiction traditionally is again about a world where there is no magic, and fantasy, of course, where there is.
So, and a couple of other examples here, just so we can get a scope of this.
My primary other example is N.K. Jemison's Broken Earth trilogy. Okay. So the Broken Earth is a world that only resembles ours in the sense of the word Earth, right? It's a planet that is the scene of multiple ongoing catastrophes, environmental catastrophes.
Yeah, I know that planet.
It's sometimes the allegory is a little thin, right?
Yeah, right.
But in this case, the major damage is in the form of earthquakes. This world
instead of hurricanes.
Yes, this world sees civilization ending earthquake activity every 100 or 200 years. Yeah. So civilization never really has a chance to take off anymore.
So the chalkboard gets erased every 200 years and it starts over.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. As it turns out, the planet itself has a. I'm sorry to spoil, but
don't listen if you're planning on reading this. Okay.
Yes, it has a mind of its own. It has a will of its own, and it is furious with humanity for what humanity has done to it. This is its retribution.
So there's an anarchical element to all of this, I think, right? We have an order here in terms of laws and social norms and things that most of us accept without thinking. And these books are trying to take that apart a little bit, right?
What they're especially pushing against is this idea of that sort of two world system, right? But
The two worlds are
the human and the inhuman worlds, right? These are sort of separate but equal
so
powers.
human and nature and mechanical.
Yes.
So either one, yeah.
The sociologist Bruno Latour talks about this in terms of a metaphor. He calls it the modern constitution. The modern world really only emerges after that separation of powers has been accomplished between the natural and the human. And once you start seeing the world in that way, it's very hard to unsee it again. But Jemison and Shull and others in their cohort have been, I think, undermining that idea, right? So Jemison's Earth is itself not just this sort of mindless geological entity. It's a person, which turns out to be, very close to how so-called pre-modern people see the world.
Yeah.
Which includes the natives in Nisi Shull's Everfair. They see a world that is intensely peopled,
Yeah.
right, as opposed to sort of a desert with an island of humanity in it.
Well, going back to the post-World War II period with Catch-22 becoming a phrase, right, which kind of refers
Right.
to some of what we're talking about here, right, when the structure of the established order doesn't make sense anymore, right, and we need to rethink it.
Yes. Yeah, that's a nice comparison, actually.
Yeah, yeah. So you said, you're a nerd. I'm a nerd too, I guess, because I'm reading these things. What constitutes being a nerd when it comes to all this? Is it because it just was something that most people didn't look at, or do you have other connotations for that?
Well, so I feel like the meaning of categories like nerd or geek or dork even have really been evolving very, very, very quickly. It used to be that these words defined a pretty definite subculture, and one that was defined by its exile from mainstream culture.
Right.
And that division has fallen apart at the exact same time that we've seen sort of an ascendancy of the nerds, right, in terms of the rise of technology,
Right.
the rise of tech entrepreneurs and so forth, like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. That's another sign of the sort of mainstreaming of what was formerly a niche. And I think that in many ways, what we could see as a kind of part of the white backlash to racial progress has been in the form of this sort of violent assertion of a claim to this territory, the incredible racist outbursts over the new Star Wars movies, for instance, which were apparently fueled in part by Russian trolls and bots, as a way to.
Which sounds like a plot from a science fiction story, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Yeah. But it was again as a means of introducing more tension in American society. It seems as if so much of our current politics are mediated through science fiction and fantasy, and that really fascinated me. I wanted to spend some time thinking about that.
Well, so then nerd becomes normal, and this static world that we think of in terms of the 1950s and the early 1960s evolves, changes, and where are we now? Are we halfway to dissolving that and coming up with something else? How do you see it?
Well, I think we're still in this a state of backlash. So I should mention that the Broken Earth trilogy, which has three volumes.
Yeah.
It came up with Hugo Awards each volume for 3 years, and in each of those 3 years, there was a campaign by some white supremacists to push it out of consideration for the Hugos, and to put forward these
Like
white
they're
titles.
monitoring that. That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was
We'd
a
be
perfect,
fighting over something like that.
perfect bellwether of what was to come. This is just in the years pre 2016, pre-Trump.
Yeah.
We could have seen it coming.
So obviously these changes are happening. We're looking at the world around us with new eyes. Some of us anyway, right? And there's a backlash of people who don't want to see the changes to happen. Right?
Yes.
Like what's threatening there? How do you read that?
I think a lot of things are found threatening by white nationalists and Christian supremacists and so forth. But I think maybe one of the biggest is this idea that our civilization, as we know it, is probably coming to an end, right? That it can't go on as it has before. It's not clear if it will go on in any form at all.
And that, I mean, let's just stick with that for a second. I mean, that is just a profound change from the world that you and I grew up in, where we were going to land, on the moon, and everything was moving forward. Kennedy's inaugural speech and things like that, and things not going in that direction, right? We've constantly had to reevaluate and rethink what we were doing and where we were going. So the idea is to oppose change? So who's anarchical here? The people who are driving the change, or the people who want us to stay the same? If the change becomes common, right, becomes normal, who are the anarchists?
I do think that something that you could call anarchism offers a way forward beyond capitalism, beyond petrocapitalism, beyond the nation state. People coming together to meet each other's needs directly is probably something like the only form of civilization that has a chance in the future.
Yeah. So, and when we think of some of these works in terms of anarchism, these are little doses of anarchism, right? We're not talking about Guy Fawkes anarchism. Let's rip down everything and have no rules, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think of a concrete example of this as the little play group that my daughter was in for a few years when she was younger, which was called the Rebel Bells. It was a feminist play group, and they began their session by making what they called acuerdos, right? Agreements.
What do they call them?
Acuerdos.
Okay, all right.
So they would reach agreements about how they wanted to be treated, how they wanted to treat each other. These are rules of a sort, but they're not pre-given. They were not foisted on them by the adults, and as a result, they found them much more meaningful and really kept to them.
That's interesting. An experiment,
yeah,
if you will. Yeah. Well, so in some of these stories, like the Hunger Games, for instance, you've got societal inequalities, freedom and oppression, rebellion, power and control, right? Do you see these, this literature that you're looking at is consciously dealing with these social issues with an unspoken political agenda, or do you think these are just issues that need to be discussed and they're just in the public sphere and that's what's being written about?
I think that science fiction and fantasy almost always responds to things in the real world, right? As somebody once put it, science fiction is never about the future; it's about the present.
Yeah.
And I think that particularly some of the science fiction and fantasy that I focus on is so sensitive to what's happening right now that it really becomes a very powerful way of talking about what's real. The Broken Earth trilogy, I think you could say, is maybe the great epic of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Explain that.
Right. So it was inspired directly for N.K. Jemisin by the scenes that evolved out of the murder of Michael Brown in St. Louis. She was taking that in at the time and dreaming about it, and I think she found a way to talk about it at the same time that she's also clearly talking about things like climate change. So sort of figuring out the articulation between the ecological and the racial.
I see. And give us some more of an example from the book itself, though. What's parallel in the book?
From Jemisin's book?
Yeah.
So.
For those who haven't read it.
Yes. So in her novel, there's a class system, right? The civilization that has managed to survive the death of civilization, again and again,
right,
is one that is based on a particular kind of system. They call it stone lore.
With a 200-year memory, basically, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's interesting.
So it's essentially survival-oriented. Everyone has particular duties. Everyone knows what to do in the event of a shake.
Sounds like a zombie movie without zombies.
Ooh, well, interesting.
Apocalyptic.
Interesting thought. Yeah.
It's a constant apocalypse.
A constant apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yes. And there's a special class of people called the Orogenes, which I think is an interesting name. If you take it to its roots, I think it implies the earthborn, right? Orogene. They are people who are capable of communing with the earth and either starting or stopping earthquakes. So they are respected but feared, and they're kept as essentially slaves. They are watched over from the moment of their birth and either killed or trained in very excruciating ways to obey and to serve the current order by suppressing sheikhs.
And there's something parallel here with the Black Lives Movement.
Very much so.
Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. I think that she's looking at these people under this incredible pressure.
Yeah.
Right. Which eventually has to give way to a revolt of some kind.
Yeah.
And it certainly does.
Well, as we're drawing to a close here, I want to ask you about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and The Matrix and things like that. But we realize we don't have time to go into those. But do you have a few thoughts on some of the more well-known works of science fiction and horror and fantasy?
Frankenstein is brilliant and just remains relevant hundreds of years later. What was it? You mentioned The Matrix.
Oh, and The Matrix, of course. Of course, that's the first thing I thought of when we started talking about this.
Yeah. Incidentally,
it's certainly telling us there's a different way of looking at things, right?
Yeah. The occasion of my first coming on Lakeshore Public TV 20-odd years ago was that I was running a film festival at the time on campus featuring movies like The Matrix and Existenz and The Truman Show and so forth. It all came out right on top of each other around 1999 that featured very, very parallel themes of being trapped in a simulation.
Right.
And I wanted to explore that and explore possible reasons for this simultaneous interest in that. I think it was a nice reflection of this fear that we were living in an economic bubble that was about to burst.
Which it was, yes.
Yes.
But more than that, though, right? I mean, obviously there are other bigger issues. The constraints of the social order and things like that, right?
Yes. I mean, power, control, deception. Yes.
Yeah. So, would you take the blue pill or the red pill if you were in the Matrix here? Which do you think?
Lately, that's a loaded question. Right? To be red pilled in today's discourse means to accept the supposed truth that women are inferior, that white people are supposed to be in charge of everything, and so forth. So I suppose I would take the blue pill.
Well, that's a good application of that. Thank you. That's all the time we have for our program, so thank you to Dr. Jesse Cohn for joining me today on the Roundtable Perspective. I'm Tom Roach. See you next time.